Hi, welcome back. In your reading this week, Celtic Christianity, George Hunter really lets us have it in terms of what he thinks about what modern church leaders are doing, at least in what we have conversations about. He suggests that in many ways, my words, not his, but that today's Christian leaders are often so heavenly minded that they're no earthly good. We want to talk about the atonement theory. We want to talk about this or this or this, and no one else really wants to talk about that thing that we want to talk about, or that we think they ought to be talking about. I was working with a church this weekend that has this exact problem. They're trying to reach the unchurched people in their community, and in fact have been convinced that their efforts have been, that we just need a little tweaking here and there and we'll be successful at it. They've not been successful at it so far. This is one of the reasons. Here's a sermon title that was written, designed, aimed at those who live in the community. True maturity begins by building your life on your baptism. Now, what's wrong with that? Well, for one, it's clearly aimed at those who understand church language, but also suggests that those coming to the service to hear the sermon would probably already be baptized. Again, of course, presuming that an unchurched person knows what the heck that means in the first place. You see, one of the reasons that non-believers find the church so irrelevant to them and to their lives and to everything that they understand about culture and society where they live, which is sometimes doesn't seem to be where we seem to be living, is that the church is addressing questions that aren't being asked. If you look at a list of the top 10 concerns of people today, the fear of going to hell is not on that list. In fact, you have to get to like 60 or 70 to even come close to that being an issue whatsoever. No one loses sleep, or pretty much no one loses sleep over whether they're going to heaven and hell in this culture. However, I can't tell you the number of pastors and other church leaders who I have spoken with, and they say, well, yeah, they're not asking that question, but they ought to be. Well, here's the problem, is the ought to be's don't make anything relevant. As church leaders, we need to get over anything that says ought to be so that we can get serious about dealing with what really is. Because the only thing that we have to work with is what is. It would be nice if our culture was more Christian. It would be nice if we had, if you will, prayer in school or whatever your hot button item is. That's nice. That's not the reality. It would be nice if we could put baptism class on our church sign and people would come pouring in to find out about that. It's not going to happen because they don't find it relevant, even though they should or they ought to. Relevance begins and ends with the principle that I call listening. Lots and lots of listening. And as a church, we don't tend to be very good at this listening game. And once we listen, then and only then have we earned the right, or even come to the place where we might understand the questions, and then we perhaps can weigh in. One of the interesting things that George Hunter points out in this chapter is that his disciples, the priests and the folks who lived in his compounds, whatever, they addressed what essentially Hunter calls Middle Earth. Those of you who are Hobbit fans will know all about that. It's a different Middle Earth. But that Middle Earth, the everyday of life, not the stuff that theologians think about up here, about what ought to be, or the base things of the elemental world, the theories of, or the practical pieces of Newton's theories and whatnot. The in-between stuff, the everyday stuff, St. Patrick and his crew addressed with prayers that address real life. Prayers for things like, of all things, cutting your fingernails. Yeah, there was reasons for that. Yes, there's some superstitious reasons for that. But they had prayers for everything. Edward Hayes, a priest, has a monk and a priest, has a number of books out, but one of which is Prayers for a Planetary Pilgrim. And he has a prayer for when you use the restroom, and it's a prayer thanking God that your kidneys are working. I can tell you, being with people who were dying because of kidney failure, that's not a bad prayer. That's how base, if you will, that's how real life St. Patrick made religion. It wasn't a Sunday thing. It was an everyday thing. The principles of relevance, the principle of listening, are equally important when it comes to personal evangelism. Never mind just the church part where we have the right sermon titles and the right sermon topics. We're talking about personal evangelism in this course, among other things. And listening, and of course relevance through listening, are exceptionally important. You see, as Christians, we're known for having an agenda, really having an agenda. We go in and have a discussion, not a conversation. Conversations, you go and you converse openly, and it goes this way or this way or this way, and we have no destination other than the time spent with the person. A discussion is a conversation disguised, or actually it's a discussion disguised as a conversation. Here's where I want to go, here's what I want to get across to you, and here's the way we're going to get there. But we're going to get there because I have an agenda and I have something to say to you. Christians aren't invited into conversations much with unchurched people. The way to build friends today with unchurched people is the same you'll always build friends. The same way. You get to know someone by having conversations with them. You'll listen. You'll listen a lot. You get to know not so much what makes them tick, that comes later. You get to listen to what is interesting and what common interests you have. And you build on those common interests, and you explore those things that aren't common. You spend time with them, significant time with them. You can't build a friendship without spending significant time. There's an old saying, a friend in need is a friend indeed. Well, here's the deal, is the bottom line is having a friend is a pain in the neck because they demand time from you. To build a friendship takes an investment of time. And if you're going to have unchurched friends, non-believing friends, you're going to have to invest that time. Don't get in a hurry to launch into atonement theories, or whether you died tonight, you're going to go to heaven or hell, or. In fact, 1 Peter 3:15 is really clear that the conversations start when they ask questions. So let things happen. And they will happen. And they'll happen when the Holy Spirit prompts them, because the time is right to hear from you.